Dawn broke over Los Angeles, filtering through the foggy windows of an aging Dodge van. Inside, Jada Thomas carefully folded the worn blanket that covered her sleeping son, Malik, 10 years old. The boy's breathing had a slight wheeze, the first warning sign of an asthma attack that Jada had learned to listen for. She checked her watch. 6 a.m. Early enough to use the gas station bathroom before the morning shift worker arrived, the one who always gave her suspicious looks. "Malik," she whispered, gently shaking her son's shoulder. "Time to get up, baby." The boy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Those eyes, perceptive and intelligent, always made Jada's chest tighten with a mixture of pride and fear. Fear that the world would never give him the chance to use it. "Same dream again, Mom," Malik mumbled, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. "The one with the house. Our house," Jada smiled. "One day, baby, I promise." Their morning routine was practiced to perfection. A quick wash in the gas station bathroom, teeth brushed with bottled water, and breakfast from their dwindling supplies. "Library today?" Malik asked, packing his prized possessions. "After I check out that pawn shop in Reseda. I think the brooch might be worth something." The brooch had been a lucky find, spotted in a donation bin behind a church when Jada had been searching for one. Clothes, Victorian-looking, with tiny seed pearls and filigree. She'd recognized its potential value immediately, one of the few benefits of her years working as a house cleaner for wealthy families. She'd developed an eye for quality. Mrs. Lowry, the owner of the muffler shop where Jada parked her van at night, nodded as they emerged into the morning light. "Morning. Sleep okay?" "Yes, ma'am," Malik answered. "Got something for you," Mrs. Lowry said, reaching into her pocket. She handed Jada a slightly crumpled flyer. "Storage auction today. Thought of you since you've got an eye for that sort of thing. Valley View Storage. Units abandoned or unpaid for 90-plus days." Her eyes caught the details. 10 a.m. start, cash only. Win and clear within 8 hours. She'd watched enough of those storage hunter shows during better times to understand how it worked. "Thank you," Jada said, carefully folding the flyer and tucking it into her jacket pocket. In the van, Malik rifled through his mother's journal, a beaten leather-bound book filled with Jada's neat handwriting detailing valuable items she'd encountered during her housekeeping days. "You wrote about a Ming vase worth $30,000, Malik said. "How did you know what it was?" Jada started the van. "The family I worked for hired an appraiser." I listened. "That's how you learn things people don't think you need to know." The pawn shop in Reseda was small but clean, with barred windows and a neon open sign that flickered intermittently. Inside, a middle-aged man with a neatly trimmed beard looked up as the bell above the door jingled. "Good morning," he said, his accent hinting at Middle Eastern origins. "Morning," Jada replied. She approached the counter and carefully unwrapped the brooch from its tissue paper. The man, Samir, according to the name tag pinned to his shirt, picked up a loop and examined the piece. "Victorian," she said, 1,880 seconds, I think. "The pearls are real, though small." Samir's eyebrows rose slightly. "You know jewelry?" "I know a little about a lot of things." "You are correct. Late Victorian. Good condition. The setting is silver, not platinum or white gold, which limits the value, but it's authentic." He set down the loop. "I can give you $60. Jada had expected 40. 75? Samir smiled. 65. Done. As he counted out the bills, Samir asked, "Any other interesting items to sell?" "Not today," Jada replied, accepting the money. Malik, who had been quietly looking at a display of pocket watches, joined his mother at the counter. "Smart kid?" Samir asked, nodding toward Malik. "Brilliant," Jada answered. Samir reached under the counter and pulled out a battered chess set. "You play?" he asked Malik. The boy's eyes lit up. "Yes, sir. At the library sometimes." "Take it," Samir said, pushing the set toward him. "Board folds up. Magnetic pieces. Previous owner didn't want it back after I gave him a loan." Malik looked questioningly at his mother. "That's very kind," Jada said. She wasn't used to generosity without strings. "I have 5 grandchildren," Samir explained. "Education is everything. Games that make you think, very important." He gestured toward the chess set again. "Please. It gathers dust here." With Jada's nod of permission, Malik carefully took the set, cradling it like a treasure. "Thank you, sir." Outside, Malik clutched his new possession. "Can we go to the storage auction, Mom? Like on those TV shows?" Jada counted their money, 65 from the brooch, plus the 47 they already had. $112, enough for a week of gas and food if they were careful. Or, "It's a gamble, Malik," she said. "But you're good at seeing value," he insisted. "We'll see." The Valley View storage facility was on a dusty backlot, surrounded by chain-link fencing topped with razor wire. A cluster of people milled around the entrance, mostly men in their 30s and 40s, a few carrying flashlights, others with notepads or smartphones, all with the keen-eyed look of people hunting for profit. Jada parked the van and hesitated, suddenly unsure. She didn't belong here. These were professionals. "Mom?" Malik's voice broke through her doubt. She nodded. "You stay close to me, okay?" They joined the group just as a heavy-set man in a company polo shirt began explaining the rules. Each unit would be opened. Bidders would have 2 minutes to look, without entering or touching anything. Then bidding would start. Cash only. Units had to be cleared within 48 hours. The first unit revealed stacked furniture, a sectional sofa, dining table, several dressers. The bidding quickly escalated beyond Jada's means, ending at $950. The second unit held boxes labeled kitchen and bedroom, along with a treadmill and several garment bags. It went for $775. By the fourth unit, Jada was losing hope. These people knew what they were doing, bidding confidently on units that held obvious resale value. Then came Unit #34. When the door rolled up, several bidders actually laughed. The small 5x10 unit appeared to hold little more than trash, boxes with water damage, a few pieces of mismatched furniture, some rolled-up carpets. "Looks like someone's spring cleaning," muttered a burly man standing near Jada. His badge identified him as Clyde. But Jada noticed something. The water damage on the boxes was only on certain ones, those stacked against the left wall. The rolled carpets showed no signs of mold, and a wooden trunk at the back was dry and intact. This wasn't a unit abandoned due to worthlessness. This was a unit where someone had made selective decisions about what to protect. "The starting bid for Unit 134 is $25, the auctioneer announced. A few of the bidders wandered away. Jada stepped forward, peering into the dim space. "Waste of time," Clyde commented to another bidder. $30, a voice called. Jada's heart raced. "45, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. Clyde glanced at her with surprise. "The lady wants the trash. All yours." "Going once for 45, the auctioneer called. "Going twice." 47, Jada amended quickly. "I bid $47. 47 going once, twice. Sold to the lady for $47. As Jada completed the paperwork and handed over their money, every dollar they had, a thin woman with nervous eyes approached. "Be careful," the woman said quietly. "Excuse me?" Jada looked up. "I'm Moira. I work in the office here." The woman glanced around as if afraid of being overheard. Sometimes units like that, ones that look worthless, they're not abandoned by accident. Sometimes people try to hide things by making them look not worth finding. Before Jada could ask what she meant, Moira hurried away, leaving Jada with a padlock key and a receipt for Unit #34. Malik stood before the open unit, his expression a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. "It does look kind of messy. Let's see what we've got before we judge." She stepped into the unit, moving carefully toward the wooden trunk. Over the next 2 hours, they methodically sorted through the contents. Much of it was indeed trash, intentionally damaged items, papers soaked beyond recognition. But there were treasures too. A set of silver flatware wrapped in tarnished cloth, several vintage jewelry boxes containing costume pieces, and hardcover books that had been protected from the water damage. "Mom, look!" Malik held up an old Polaroid camera. "Does it still work?" "Maybe. We'll check it later." Jada was focused on the trunk, which was locked. A voice from the entrance made them both jump. "Find anything good?" It was Clyde. "Bet you're regretting that $47 now, huh?" Jada straightened. "We're doing fine. Thank you." His eyes narrowed as they fell on the silver flatware Jada had set aside. Maybe not a complete bust after all. He stepped away, calling over his shoulder, 48 hours to clear it out. The clock's ticking. When he was gone, Malik whispered, I don't like him, Mom. Me neither. Baby. Jada returned to the trunk, examining the lock. They loaded their most promising finds into the van, the silver, the books, the intact boxes, and drove to a hardware store where Jada purchased a small pry bar with $5 precious that Samir had given her as extra for the 5-in brooch. That night, parked in their usual spot behind Mrs. Lowry's shop, Jada worked on the trunk while Malik sorted through their other finds. Mom, these books are really old, he said, carefully turning the pages of a leather-bound volume. This one's from 1932. First editions? Jada asked. I don't think so. But they're still nice. With a final effort, the trunk's lock gave way. Jada sat back, wiping sweat from her forehead, then slowly raised the lid. Inside lay a carefully organized collection: jewelry boxes, sealed envelopes tied with faded ribbon, a folded American flag in a triangle display case, and newspaper clippings preserved in plastic sleeves. Jada lifted out one of the clippings. The headline read, O'Keefe estate valuation exceeds expectations. The article, dated 1985, discussed the art collection of Richard O'Keefe, described as one of the city's premier art dealers and collectors. Who's Richard O'Keefe? Malik asked. I don't know, Jada murmured, setting the clipping aside and picking up one of the jewelry boxes. Inside was a gold locket on a delicate chain. Jada opened it to find a tiny photograph of a young woman with a gentle smile and intelligent eyes. On the back of the locket was an engraving, To Catherine, all my love. Malik had opened another box, revealing a velvet pouch. Mom, look! The pouch contained a key, not a door key, but a small, ornate key with a numbered tag. Box 891, a safe deposit box, Jada whispered. As they continued their exploration, a narrative began to emerge. Catherine Hayes had been Richard O'Keefe's personal assistant, and possibly more, based on the intimate tone of several sealed letters they found. She had disappeared in 1984, and according to another newspaper clipping, had been declared legally dead 7 years later. But the most intriguing item was a journal entry, torn from a diary and preserved separately. If anything happens to me, the proof is secured. Box 891 contains everything needed to expose the truth. Richard trusted me with his legacy, not Vincent. V has always resented this and will do anything to claim what he believes is his. I've arranged a fail-safe. This unit is paid for 10 years in advance under a pseudonym. If I can't retrieve these items myself, I pray someone worthy finds them. It was signed simply C.H. and dated the 17th of August 1984. Malik, I think we've stumbled onto something serious. Like a mystery in your detective books? Maybe. But real mysteries can be dangerous. She carefully replaced the items in the trunk. Tomorrow we need to do some research. That night, as Malik slept, Jada stared at the ceiling of their van, the locket clutched in her hand. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope, not just because of the potential value of what they'd found, but because of the story emerging from that forgotten storage unit. The Central Library of Los Angeles stood like a temple of knowledge against the morning sky, its Art Deco facade, a reminder of more elegant times. For Jada and Malik, it served as both sanctuary and resource, a place with free internet access, clean bathrooms, and librarians who didn't eye them suspiciously when they stayed for hours. Remember, we're looking for information on Richard O'Keefe, Catherine Hayes, and anything about an art collection or estate dispute in the mid-1980 seconds, Jada instructed as they settled at adjacent computer terminals. Malik nodded seriously, typing with the proficiency of a much older child. His intelligence had always been evident. Even as a toddler, he'd shown a gift for patterns and memory that had both delighted and worried Jada. Delighted because she recognized his potential. Worried because she feared their circumstances would suffocate it. An hour of searching yielded promising results. Richard O'Keefe had indeed been a prominent art dealer in Los Angeles from the 1962 until his death in 1983. His collection, particularly his Impressionist paintings, had been valued in the millions. After his death, the estate had passed to his business partner and nephew, Vincent O'Keefe, in what the Los Angeles Times had described as an unexpected development that surprised many in the art world. "Mom, look at this," Malik said. He'd found an archived Society page photo showing Richard O'Keefe at a gallery opening. Beside him stood a woman whose face matched the Lockett photograph, Catherine Hayes, identified in the caption as personal assistant. "She's pretty," Malik observed. "And young," Jada added. "She'd have been in her late 20s here, and he looks about 60. Further searching revealed that Catherine Hayes had vanished without a trace in September 1984, almost exactly a year after Richard O'Keefe's death. The disappearance had generated some press at the time, with Vincent O'Keefe quoted as saying she had been distraught after his uncle's death and that he feared she may have taken her own life. But one article, buried deep in their search results, hinted at something more complex. Written by investigative journalist Lenora Hall for the now-defunct LA Examiner, it raised questions about Hayes' disappearance and its timing, just days before a scheduled audit of the O'Keefe Gallery's financial records. The article quoted an anonymous source suggesting that Catherine had discovered discrepancies in the gallery's accounts after Richard's death. It concluded with a tantalizing line: "Miss Hayes' disappearance may have silenced her, but questions about the O'Keefe estate linger. Can we find this Lenora Hall person?" Malik asked. Jada performed a new search. "Looks like she's still around. She writes a blog about Los Angeles history and politics." She scribbled down the contact information. "This might be our best lead." As they gathered their research, Jada noticed Malik's breathing. The slight wheeze had returned, more pronounced than that morning. "Your inhaler?" she asked. Malik reached into his pocket, producing the blue rescue inhaler that was their constant companion. He took 2 puffs, his small chest expanding as he held his breath for the required count. "I'm okay," he said after a moment. "Let's get some lunch," she said, forcing brightness into her tone. They couldn't afford to eat out, but she'd packed sandwiches and apples. A picnic in the library's courtyard would give Malik fresh air and a chance to rest. As they ate, Jada's mind worked through their options. The silver flatware could be sold. Samir would give her a fair price, or she could try another pawn shop for comparison. The books might be worth something to a collector. And then there was the safe deposit key. "We should contact Miss Hall," Malik said, interrupting her thoughts. "It's not that simple, baby. We can't just call up a journalist and tell her we found someone's private belongings in a storage unit." "Why not? Isn't that what journalists do? Investigate things?" "You might be right. Let me think about how to approach her." That afternoon, they returned to the storage unit to continue sorting and packing. Jada was acutely aware of Clyde's warning, 48 hours to clear everything out. They'd need to make several trips in the van, which meant spending precious gas money. As they worked, Malik made an exciting discovery: a hidden compartment in the bottom of a damaged dresser drawer. Inside was an envelope containing vintage photographs of Catherine Hayes, including one with her standing in front of a magnificent painting, her arm linked with Richard O'Keefe's. "Look how happy they look," Malik observed. On the back of the photo was written, "Richard and I with the Monet, 1982, the happiest of birthdays." Another photo showed Catherine alone, standing on the deck of what appeared to be a beach house, the ocean stretching behind her. "Malibu Retreat, summer 1983 was noted on the reverse. "Mom, do you think Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Hayes were in love?" Malik asked with a child's directness. Jada considered the evidence: the locket inscription, the intimate photos, the protective way O'Keefe stood beside Catherine in several images. It seems possible. He was much older, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have cared for each other deeply. By evening, they had cleared about half the unit, salvaging what seemed valuable or significant and reluctantly leaving the rest. The silver flatware, books, trunk contents, and photographs were carefully packed in the van. That night, parked behind Mrs. Lowry's shop, Jada composed an email to Lenora Hall. She kept it simple and direct. Miss Hall, I recently came across some items belonging to Catherine Hayes, the woman who disappeared in 1984 after working for Richard O'Keefe. Your article from that time raised questions about her disappearance and the O'Keefe estate. I believe I may have found evidence supporting your suspicions. Would you be willing to meet? She signed it with just her first name and a temporary email address she'd created at the library, then sent it from her phone, one of the few luxuries she maintained, necessary for the occasional house-cleaning jobs she still picked up when available. The reply came faster than she expected, just 20 minutes later. Intrigued. Coffee tomorrow? 10 a.m. at Figaro's in Vermont. I'll be wearing a red scarf. Lenora Jada showed the message to Malik, who was playing with his magnetic chess set, setting up complex problems for himself to solve. Are we going? He asked. I am. You'll stay with Mrs. Lowry. The auto shop owner had occasionally watched Malik when Jada had a cleaning job, another kindness Jada added to her mental ledger of debts she hoped to repay someday. But I want to come. I found some of the important clues. His lower lip jutted out in a rare display of childish protest. I know you did, and you're my best detective, Jada said. But we don't know this woman, or how she'll react. If something feels wrong, I need to be able to leave quickly without worrying about you. Will you at least tell me everything when you get back? Every detail, she promised. The next morning, after dropping Malik with Mrs. Lowry, Jada drove to Figaro's cafe. She'd chosen her best outfit, black pants, a navy blouse without visible signs of wear, and a cardigan to hide the fraying cuffs. She spotted Lenora Hall immediately. She sat alone at a corner table, a notebook open before her. Gathering her courage, Jada approached. Miss Hall, I'm Jada. The older woman looked up. Please, sit. I've ordered coffee for 2. I hope that's all right. Jada sat, grateful that the woman had chosen a relatively inexpensive cafe. Even so, she hadn't budgeted for eating out. Thank you for meeting me. Your email mentioned Catherine Hayes. That's a name I haven't heard in quite some time. Lenora's voice was rich and measured. You said you found something? Yes, but first, how much do you remember about her case? Enough to know it wasn't what Vincent O'Keefe claimed it was. Catherine Hayes wasn't suicidal. She was methodical, intelligent, and utterly devoted to Richard. After he died, she was determined to protect his legacy. She paused as the waiter delivered their coffee. Now, what exactly have you found, Jada? Jada took a deep breath and explained about the storage unit auction, the trunk, and its contents. She showed Lenora several photos on her phone, images she'd taken of the journal entry, newspaper clippings, and photographs. Lenora listened without interruption. When Jada mentioned the safe deposit box key, the journalist let out a low whistle. Box 891, Lenora murmured. Did you try to access it? Jada shook her head. I don't know which bank it belongs to. And even if I did, I wouldn't have the authority. Smart. Very smart. Lenora tapped a manicured nail against her coffee cup. The tag might indicate First National. They were Richard's bank of choice. She studied Jada. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? I want the truth, she finally said. These belongings, they tell a story that someone tried to bury. Catherine Hayes disappeared, but her things were carefully preserved. She matters, even if someone wants to erase her. And if there's monetary value to all this, a reward, or even historical significance that could be profitable, I'm not going to lie to you. I need money. My son and I live in our van. He has asthma. So yes, if there's a reward or if some of these items are valuable, I would gratefully accept compensation. But that's not why I contacted you. I contacted you because your article was the only one that questioned the official story. Let me be direct. I've been chasing the O'Keefe story for decades. Vincent O'Keefe is now in his 70s, still running what's left of the gallery, still respected in the art world. But I've always believed he stole from his uncle, both financially and in terms of his rightful legacy, which should have gone to Catherine. I believe so. There were rumors that Richard had changed his will shortly before his death, leaving Catherine a significant portion of his estate, particularly his personal art collection. But when he died, Vincent produced a will, leaving everything to him. Catherine contested it, quietly at first, through legal channels. Then she vanished. You think Vincent was involved in her disappearance? I think Catherine Hayes discovered proof of Vincent's embezzlement from the gallery. I think she was preparing to expose him when she disappeared. And I think she was smart enough to leave insurance behind, which may be exactly what you found. Lenora closed her notebook. I want to help you pursue this, but you need to understand something. The O'Keefes are powerful, with connections throughout this city. If Vincent discovers what you found, he won't hesitate to come after it. And you, a chill ran down Jada's spine. Why would he care after all these years? The statute of limitations. This isn't just about legal consequences, Lenora interrupted. It's about legacy and reputation. Vincent's entire life has been built on his status as Richard's heir and the prestige of the O'Keefe collection. If evidence emerges that he stole that position, that he potentially had something to do with Catherine's disappearance, it would destroy him. She leaned forward. Are you prepared for what that might mean? For you and your son? Jada hesitated. The weight of what she'd discovered suddenly felt much heavier. She'd been focused on the potential value of the items, on the mystery of Catherine Hayes. But now Lenora was suggesting something darker, that these decades-old secrets could still be dangerous. I need to think, she said finally. Of course. Lenora reached into her purse and produced a business card. My personal cell is on the back. Call me when you decide. In the meantime, be careful with what you've found. Don't show it to anyone else. As Jada drove back to Mrs. Lowry's shop, her mind raced. Lenora's warnings echoed in her thoughts, mingling with the more immediate concerns of gas money, Malik's medications, and where they would sleep if Mrs. Lowry ever asked them to move on. She was so preoccupied that she almost missed it, the small white sedan that had followed her from the cafe, maintaining a consistent distance behind the van. When she turned onto a side street, the sedan did too. When she made an unnecessary loop around a block, the car stayed with her. Heart pounding, Jada made a series of random turns, finally pulling into a crowded shopping center parking lot and driving around to the back, where she parked between two delivery trucks. She waited, watching through the side mirror, and saw the white sedan cruise slowly past the entrance to the lot. It could be nothing, she told herself, but didn't believe it. Not after her conversation with Lenora. When she picked up Malik from Mrs. Lowry's, she didn't mention the car or her fears. Instead, she listened to his excited recounting of how he'd helped change the oil on a Honda Civic and learned about different types of wrenches. That evening, they drove to a different parking spot, a 24-hour grocery store lot where other vehicles sometimes remained overnight. Jada didn't want to risk leading anyone back to their usual spot behind Mrs. Lowry's shop. As Malik prepared for bed, he asked, "Did you meet the journalist lady?" What did she say? She knew Catherine Hayes and believed she was a good person who might have been hurt because she knew too much. About the art collection? Possibly. Miss Hall thinks Catherine may have discovered that Vincent O'Keefe was stealing from the gallery. So it is like a mystery novel, with a villain and everything. Life is rarely as simple as books, baby. Jada smoothed his hair back from his forehead. But yes, there does seem to be a mystery here. One that might be better left alone. But what about Catherine? If someone hurt her, shouldn't they face consequences? Out of the mouths of babes, Jada thought for the second time that day. Her son's moral clarity cut through her own cautious calculations. "You're right," she said softly. "Justice matters, even decades later." After Malik fell asleep, Jada examined their findings again, focusing on the safe deposit box key. If Lenora was right about it belonging to First National Bank, it might be their most significant lead. But as a homeless woman with no account at the bank, she had no standing to inquire about the box. She needed Lenora's help. And perhaps more importantly, she needed an ally in what was beginning to feel like a dangerous pursuit. Jada took out her phone and sent a text to Lenora. "I'm in. But we need to be careful. I think I was followed today." The response came quickly. "Not surprised. Meet tomorrow, 3 p.m. My apartment, safer than public. Address to follow." Jada stared at the message, a mixture of determination and fear settling in her stomach. She glanced at Malik, peaceful in sleep, and thought about the life she wanted for him. stable, safe, full of opportunities. Lenora Hall's apartment was not what Jada had expected. Located in a modest building in Los Feliz, it was a cluttered two-bedroom filled with books, files, and memorabilia from a long journalistic career. "Sorry about the mess," Lenora said, clearing stacks of newspapers from a sofa to make room for Jada. "Occupational hazard. I never know when old research might become relevant again." Malik, who Jada had reluctantly brought along after Mrs. Lowry mentioned a doctor's appointment, stared wide-eyed at the organized chaos. "Are you a detective?" he asked. The journalist smiled. "Something like that. Journalists and detectives have a lot in common. We both look for the truth in places where people try to hide it." She offered them tea and cookies, which Malik accepted eagerly. "I've made some calls," Lenora said once they were settled. First National Bank was absorbed by Western Union Banking about 15 years ago. All their safe deposit boxes were transferred. If Box 891 still exists, it would be at their downtown branch. "Can we access it?" Jada asked. "That's the challenge. The box would be in Catherine's name, or possibly a pseudonym given her precautions. Without documentation proving your right to access, they won't open it." Lenora sipped her tea thoughtfully. "But I have a contact there, a former source who's now in management. He might be willing to at least confirm if the box exists and who can legally access it." "That would be a start," Jada agreed. "Now, tell me about being followed yesterday." Jada described the white sedan and its persistent tracking. "It could have been a coincidence." "I don't believe in coincidences. Not in this case." Lenora set down her cup. "Vincent O'Keefe has resources. If he somehow learned about your storage unit find, perhaps through that auction house regular you mentioned, Clyde, he wouldn't hesitate to put someone on you." Malik, who had been quietly listening while nibbling a cookie, suddenly spoke up. "Like in spy movies. But how would Mr. O'Keefe know about the storage unit?" "Good question. Jada, did you use a credit card at the auction? Or show ID?" "Cash only. But yes, I had to show my ID for the paperwork. And that woman Moira who works there, she seemed to know something about the unit. Said sometimes people hide things by making them look not worth finding." "Interesting." Lenora jotted something in her notebook. "If Vincent has been monitoring any activity related to Catherine or that storage unit, your name might have triggered an alert." "What should we do?" Jada asked, the sense of being out of her depth growing stronger. "First, we document everything you've found. I'll take photographs, make copies of any papers. Then we approach the bank about Box 891. Meanwhile, I'll start quietly researching Vincent's current situation, finances, health, recent activities. Know thy enemy." Over the next 2 hours, they carefully cataloged every item from the storage unit that Jada had brought: the journal entry, photographs, locket, and most importantly, the safe deposit box key. Lenora photographed everything, created a detailed inventory, and stored digital copies on an encrypted drive. "Insurance," she explained. "If anything happens to the originals." "You really think someone would try to take them?" Malik asked. "I think powerful people protect their secrets, young man. That's why truth-tellers need to be just as careful as secret keepers." As evening approached, Jada felt a growing uneasiness. The weight of what they were pursuing and its potential dangers was becoming clearer with each passing hour. "We should go," she said, gathering their belongings. "It's getting late. Where are you staying tonight?" Lenora asked. Jada hesitated. Their usual spot behind Mrs. Lowry's shop might not be safe if they were being watched. The grocery store parking lot was too exposed. "We have options," she said vaguely. "My guest room is available. It's small, mostly used for storage, but there's a proper bed. We couldn't impose. It's not an imposition, it's pragmatism. If Vincent O'Keefe has someone watching you, staying with me is safer than whatever options you're considering." Her gaze flicked briefly to Malik, who was examining a framed photograph of Lenora with a group of journalists. "Besides, I have research to do, and it's more efficient if you're here to answer questions as they arise." Jada recognized the offer for what it was: kindness disguised as practicality to preserve her dignity. "Thank you. Just for tonight." While Lenora cleared space in the guest room, Jada received a text from an unknown number. "The items from Unit #34 have significant value. $5,000 cash, no questions asked. Reply if interested. She showed the message to Lenora. They're making contact. This confirms they know what you found. How did they get my number? If they have resources, it wouldn't be difficult. Your phone was likely listed on the storage unit paperwork. Should I respond? Jada asked. Not yet. Let them reveal more first. They've lowballed you. That means they're worried and want to resolve this quickly. Lenora's strategic mind was already working. That night, after Malik had fallen asleep in the guest room bed, Jada sat with Lenora in the living room, sipping tea that had been enhanced with a touch of whiskey. Tell me about you and your son, Lenora said. A series of setbacks, each one pushing us closer to the edge. I worked as a house cleaner for wealthy families in Bel Air and Brentwood. Good money, but no benefits. When Malik was diagnosed with asthma, the medical bills started piling up. She paused, remembering the mounting anxiety of that time. Then the pandemic hit. Most of my clients canceled regular cleaning services. I fell behind on rent, tried to negotiate with the landlord, but, she shrugged. 3 months later, we were evicted. No family to help? My mother died when I was 20. My father's not in the picture. I have a sister in Atlanta, but she's struggling with 3 kids. Jada took a sip of the spiked tea. We stayed in shelters at first, but they're often full, have time limits, or separate men from women, which would mean being separated from Malik. The van was supposed to be temporary. How long has it been? 14 months. Lenora nodded. And the storage unit auction? That was a calculated risk? More like desperation. Jada smiled. But I do have an eye for value. From years of cleaning expensive homes, handling valuable things, overhearing conversations about art and antiques, I noticed what the other bidders missed. That trunk was deliberately protected from the water damage. Catherine was clever, Lenora mused. She made sure her legacy would be found by someone who paid attention to details. The next morning, they set their plan in motion. Lenora would contact her source at Western Union Banking about Box 891, while Jada would respond to the mysterious text message, attempting to gather more information about who was making the offer. Jada's reply was simple. The items may be worth more than $5,000. What specifically are you interested in? Everything from Unit Hashon 3-4. $8,000 final offer. Cash today. No police, no journalists. They're nervous, Lenora observed when Jada showed her the message. Before Jada could reply again, her phone rang. Mrs. Lowry's number. Jada, is Malik with you? Yes, he's fine. We stayed with a friend last night. Is something wrong? Someone came looking for you this morning. A man in an expensive suit said he was from a law firm representing the owner of some items you'd found. He left a business card. Richard Falk, attorney at law. The worry in Mrs. Lowry's voice deepened. Jada, he knew your name and asked about the boy. I didn't like his manner. Very insistent. Did you tell him anything? Of course not. Said I barely knew you, just let you park sometimes. But he left his card and said there could be unpleasant legal consequences if you didn't contact him. Mrs. Lowry paused. Jada, are you in some kind of trouble? Not exactly. It's complicated. Thank you for warning me. Be careful. And don't bring Malik back here for a while. I don't like the way that man asked about him. After hanging up, Jada relayed the conversation to Lenora, whose expression had grown increasingly grave. Richard Falk, she muttered, turning to her laptop. After a few minutes of typing, she beckoned Jada over. Richard Falk, senior partner at Westridge Legal. Their client list includes the O'Keefe Gallery and Foundation. On screen was a professional photograph of a silver-haired man in his 60s, with cold eyes and a tight smile. Vincent's attack dog. He handles messy situations, like threatening a homeless woman over some old photographs and trinkets. Jada's voice had an edge of anger, like making problems disappear. Lenora closed the laptop firmly. This confirms Vincent is worried. Malik emerged from the guest room then, hair tousled from sleep. Good morning, he said politely to Lenora before turning to his mother. Mom, I had that dream again. About our house. It had big windows and bookshelves all the way to the ceiling. Jada forced a smile. That sounds beautiful, baby. Go wash up and I'll find us some breakfast. When he disappeared, Lenora asked softly, "How often does he dream about having a home?" "Most nights. He draws pictures of it too, detailed floor plans, furniture arrangements. He's never really had his own room." Jada blinked back unexpected tears. "Then let's make sure he gets it." Lenora's voice was steel. "I'm calling my bank contact now. We need to know what's in that safe deposit box before Falk and Vincent make their next move." By noon, they had a breakthrough. Lenora's contact confirmed that Box 891 still existed at Western Union Banking's downtown branch. It was registered to Catherine Hayes and had been paid up for 50 years in advance, an unusual arrangement that had been grandfathered in when First National was acquired. "He can't tell us what's in it without a court order," Lenora explained. "But he did verify that it's been accessed recently." "Recently?" Jada frowned. "How is that possible if Catherine disappeared in 1984? Someone with power of attorney or legal authority. My contact promised to look into who accessed it and when." Lenora paced her living room, thinking aloud. "This changes things. If someone has already emptied the box, then whatever evidence Catherine hid might be gone." Jada finished, or moved. Lenora stopped pacing. "Think about it. If Vincent or Falk accessed the box, they wouldn't leave potentially damaging evidence just sitting there. They'd remove it. But they're still worried about what I found in the storage unit," Jada pointed out. "The text messages, Falk visiting Mrs. Lowry. They're clearly concerned, which means there must be something in what you found that could still hurt them." They spent the same afternoon combing through the storage unit items again, this time with fresh eyes. What had they missed? What could be so damaging that Vincent O'Keefe would send his attorney to make threats? It was Malik who made the breakthrough. He had been playing with the old Polaroid camera they'd found. "Mom, there's something inside," he said, holding up the camera. "I opened the film compartment and found this." This was a small key, similar to the safe deposit box key, but without a tag or number. Lenora took it. "It's not a safe deposit key. Too small. More like a key for a jewelry box or small lock. Or a diary," Jada suggested, remembering the torn journal entry. Inspired, they began examining every item again, looking for hidden compartments or concealed objects. In the back of a tarnished silver picture frame, they found a folded document pressed between the backing and the photograph, a copy of what appeared to be a will signed by Richard O'Keefe just 2 weeks before his death. The document named Catherine Hayes as the primary beneficiary of his personal art collection and a substantial portion of his estate. It was witnessed by a doctor, Eleanor Winters, and a Nathaniel Green, with the stamp of a notary public clearly visible. "This is it," Lenora breathed. "This is what Vincent has been afraid of all these years, a later will that superseded the one he used to claim the estate. But it's just a copy," Jada pointed out, "a copy with names, of witnesses and a notary, all of whom could potentially be found and questioned. And the original." Lenora held up the small key Malik had discovered. "I'm betting Catherine hid it somewhere else. Somewhere Vincent hasn't found." As the implications sank in, Jada's phone chimed with another text message. "Final warning. $10,000. Meet at Westridge legal offices tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring all items from the storage unit. No police, no journalists. After this, legal action begins." Lenora read the message over Jada's shoulder. "They're panicking. $10,000 is still an insult compared to what this will could be worth in legal terms, but it shows they're desperate to contain this." "What should we do?" Jada asked. "We need allies. Legal ones." Lenora reached for her phone. "I know an attorney who specializes in estate disputes, pro bono work for underdogs. Let's see if she's interested in taking on the O'Keefes." While Lenora made her call, Jada sat with Malik, who was busily drawing in a notebook Lenora had given him, adding details to his dream house. "Are we going to be rich, Mom?" he asked. "I don't know, baby. This isn't really about money, but if Catherine Hayes was supposed to get all those paintings and money and we found the proof, doesn't that mean we helped solve a mystery? Don't people get rewards for that?" His simple logic made her smile. "Sometimes. But more importantly, we might be helping bring justice for someone who was wronged a long time ago." like in your books, where the truth always comes out in the 5, and something like that. She smoothed his hair. Lenora returned. My attorney friend is interested. She wants to meet us this evening. She checked her watch. Meanwhile, we should respond to Falk's offer and say what? That we need more time to consider. We're not saying no, just delaying. It keeps them on edge while we strengthen our position. Lenora's strategic mind was impressive. Also, we should move these items to a secure location. My safe deposit box, perhaps. As they were discussing options, Lenora's phone rang. Her expression changed as she listened to the caller, becoming increasingly concerned. When? Are you certain? Yes, I understand the sensitivity. Thank you for letting me know. She hung up, her face grim. That was my contact at the bank. Box 891 was accessed 3 days ago by Richard Falk, acting with power of attorney for the O'Keefe estate. 3 days ago? Jada repeated. But that's right after you won the storage unit auction, Lenora confirmed. Somehow they knew you had found Catherine's things and moved quickly to secure the safe deposit box. My contact says Falk removed everything. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Someone had alerted Vincent O'Keefe almost immediately after Jada had claimed Unit #34. Moira, Jada murmured, remembering the nervous woman from the storage facility. She warned me about units where people hide things, possibly, or Clyde, or someone else at the auction. Lenora shook her head. It doesn't matter now. What matters is that they're scared enough to offer money and make threats. That means whatever proof Catherine left behind, it wasn't all in that safe deposit box. Jada thought of the hidden key, the copy of the will, the photographs and letters that hinted at a deeper relationship between Catherine and Richard. She was clever, Jada said softly. She knew someone might find the safe deposit box, so she hid things in multiple places, including that storage unit, disguised as worthless junk, waiting for someone observant enough to recognize its value. Lenora smiled at Jada. That evening, they met with Lenora's attorney friend, Alexandra Diaz, in her downtown office. She specialized in estate disputes and had built a reputation for taking on powerful interests on behalf of disenfranchised clients. After examining the documents and hearing their story, Alexandra tapped her pen against her desk thoughtfully. This copy of the will is significant, especially with named witnesses. If we can locate Dr. Winters or Mr. Green, we might be able to establish the existence of the original. And if we can't, Jada asked, then we use what we have, this copy, the journal entry indicating Catherine's fear for her safety, the photographs establishing her close relationship with Richard O'Keefe, and the fact that Vincent and his attorney have shown such interest in retrieving these items. Alexandra smiled thinly. What do you recommend as our next steps? Lenora asked. First, secure everything you found. Second, let me file an injunction preventing the O'Keefe estate from disposing of any assets until this matter is resolved. Third, begin the process of legally establishing Jada's right to possess the items from the storage unit. Alexandra turned to Jada. You paid for that unit legally, correct? You have documentation? Jada nodded, producing the receipt from her bag. Excellent. That gives us standing to argue that anything found within is legally yours, including potential legal claims arising from those items. Alexandra made notes on her legal pad. I suggest you don't respond to Falk's offer or threats. Let him wonder what we're doing. As they left Alexandra's office, Lenora seemed energized by the legal strategy. Jada, however, felt the weight of uncertainty. She had stumbled into a decades-old mystery, one with powerful people determined to keep it buried. Her life with Malik, precarious as it was, now faced additional threats. What if we're making things worse? She asked Lenora. What if Vincent retaliates? We have no home, no security. Malik's health is fragile. They have resources, connections. Lenora stopped walking, turning to face Jada. Listen to me. Yes, there's a risk, but there's also a chance for justice, for Catherine, and for you and Malik. Alexandra is one of the best. She knows how to apply pressure in ways that make wealthy people choose settlement over scandal. And if that doesn't work, I didn't spend 40 years as an investigative journalist without learning how to use public opinion as a weapon. If legal channels fail, we take this story public, with your permission, of course. A homeless mother and her asthmatic son discover evidence of a decades-old inheritance theft by one of the city's elite families. Back at Lenora's apartment, they found Malik asleep on the sofa, a chess game half finished on the coffee table. As Jada carefully carried him to the guest room, she noticed a folded paper clutched in his hand, another house drawing, but this one labeled Mom's Art Gallery with a stick figure labeled Malik, welcoming visitors at the door. 3 days passed in a whirlwind of legal preparations and investigative work. Alexandra Diaz had filed an emergency injunction preventing the O'Keefe estate from disposing of any assets related to Richard O'Keefe's original collection. Lenora had deployed her network of contacts to search for the witnesses named in the will copy: Dr. Eleanor Winters and Nathaniel Green. Meanwhile, Richard Falk had escalated from text messages to voicemails, his tone shifting from offers to veiled threats. "Miss Thomas, this is Richard Falk. My client is prepared to be generous despite your refusal to communicate. However, I feel obligated to inform you that possession of stolen property is a criminal offense. Additionally, we have concerns about the living conditions you're providing for your minor son. Child Protective Services takes such matters very seriously." The mention of Child Protective Services had struck Jada like a physical blow. It was her deepest fear that Malik would be taken from her because of their circumstances. "It's an empty threat," Alexandra assured her. "CPS doesn't remove children because of homelessness alone, especially when the parent is clearly providing care and education. He's trying to frighten you into compliance." "Well, it's working," Jada admitted. They had moved from Lenora's apartment to a small extended-stay hotel paid for by Alexandra, and day investment in my client's security, she'd explained, waving away Jada's protests. On the 4th morning, Lenora arrived with news, her eyes bright with excitement. "I found Dr. Eleanor Winters," she announced. "She's living in a retirement community in Pasadena, 86 years old and sharp as a tack." "And she remembers witnessing the will?" Jada asked. "Better than that. She was Richard O'Keefe's personal physician for nearly 20 years. She knows the whole story, including his relationship with Catherine Hayes. Can she testify? Legally, I mean?" "Alexandra is preparing the necessary documentation now. We're meeting Dr. Winters this afternoon." Lenora glanced around the hotel room. "Where's Malik?" "Taking a shower. He's still amazed we have our own bathroom." Jada smiled. "Well, let's hope we can make those miracles permanent." Lenora set her bag on the table and withdrew a folder. "I've been researching Vincent O'Keefe's current situation. The gallery is struggling financially. Several major pieces from Richard's original collection have been sold over the past decade, supposedly to keep the business afloat. So he's been liquidating the inheritance?" "Exactly. An inheritance that, if Catherine's will copy is legitimate, was never rightfully his to sell." Lenora's expression was grim. "If this case goes public, it wouldn't just be embarrassing for Vincent. It could trigger investigations into those sales, possibly fraud charges. No wonder he's desperate to silence us, and growing more desperate by the day." Lenora showed Jada a recent article from an art industry publication. "The O'Keefe Gallery is hosting a major exhibition next month, the Legacy Collection, featuring the remaining centerpieces of Richard's original acquisitions. It's being billed as Vincent's crowning achievement, preserving his uncle's vision, while he's been secretly selling it off piece by piece and actively suppressing evidence that it should have gone to Catherine Hayes in the first place." Lenora nodded. Malik emerged from the permanent bathroom. "Miss Lenora, did you bring more books?" Since learning of his voracious reading habit, Lenora had taken to bringing Malik books from her own collection, mysteries and adventures appropriate for his age. "Even better." Lenora smiled, producing a slim volume from her bag. "This is a catalog from one of Richard O'Keefe's first gallery shows in 1965. I thought you might like to see what kind of art he collected." Malik took the catalog reverently, immediately sitting cross-legged on the floor to examine it. "Mom, look, there are paintings worth millions of dollars in here." "That's right," Lenora said. "Paintings that should have gone to someone named Catherine Hayes." "The lady who disappeared," Malik said. "Did the bad man make her disappear because he wanted her paintings?" "We don't know for sure what happened to her baby. But that's what we're trying to find out, Lenora added. That's why we're meeting a doctor who knew both Catherine and Richard this afternoon. Can I come? Malik asked. Jada hesitated, but Lenora nodded. I think it would be good for Dr. Winters to meet you both. She was close to Richard and Catherine. This is personal for her, not just legal testimony. Dr. Eleanor Winters received them in her private apartment, a space filled with books, medical journals, and surprisingly modern art. You must be Lenora Hall, Dr. Winters said. Though elderly, she carried herself with the confidence of someone used to commanding respect. Thank you for seeing us, Doctor, Lenora replied. This is Jada Thomas and her son Malik. They're the ones who discovered Catherine's storage unit. Doctor, Winters studied Jada carefully before smiling. Catherine would have liked you, I think. She had a good eye for character. Her gaze moved to Malik, and a brilliant young man as well. Please sit down. I've asked them to bring tea. Once they were settled with tea and cookies, Doctor, Winters got straight to business. So, you've found evidence of Richard's revised will, she said. A copy, Jada clarified, in a picture frame from Catherine's storage unit. Clever girl, Catherine, always thinking ahead. She took a sip of tea before continuing. I should start at the beginning. I was Richard O'Keefe's physician from 1965 until his death in 1983. I watched his gallery grow from a modest space to one of the most respected collections on the West Coast. And Catherine Hayes? Lenora prompted. Catherine came into the picture in 1978. She applied for a position as Richard's assistant, just 26, but remarkably knowledgeable about art for someone so young. She'd studied art history but couldn't afford to finish her degree. Dr. Winters smiled at the memory. Richard was impressed by her immediately. Not just her knowledge, but her passion, her integrity. Were they romantically involved? Jada asked. Dr. Winters shook her head. Not in the way you might think. Richard was 40 years her senior. He came to love her, certainly, as a father might love a daughter, as a mentor loves a particularly gifted protege, and she adored him. Their connection was profound, but not romantic. Yet he changed his will to leave her his collection? Lenora asked. Because she understood it. Richard's nephew, Vincent, saw the art only as assets, valuable pieces to be bought and sold. Catherine saw them as Richard did, as expressions of human creativity, as pieces of history. Dr. Winters set down her teacup with emphasis. 2 months before he died, Richard discovered that Vincent had been selling pieces from the gallery and pocketing the proceeds. Embezzlement, Lenora murmured. Precisely. Richard was furious. He confronted Vincent, threatened to press charges, to disinherit him completely. But in the end, his health was failing, and a public scandal would have damaged the gallery's reputation. Dr. Winters sighed. So instead, he changed his will. The gallery business would go to Vincent, but the personal collection, the heart of what Richard had built, would go to Catherine, with the understanding that she would preserve it as Richard intended. And you witnessed this revised will? Lenora asked. Yes, along with Nathaniel Green, Richard's accountant. It was properly notarized, completely legal. Dr. Winters' expression hardened. After Richard died, Catherine told me Vincent had produced a different will, dated earlier, leaving everything to him. She was contesting it legally, quietly, to avoid scandal. Then she vanished. Did you suspect foul play? Jada asked. I had no proof. The police found no evidence of crime, and Vincent's story, that Catherine had been distraught, possibly suicidal, was plausible to those who didn't know her well. She met Jada's gaze directly. But Catherine Hayes was not suicidal. She was determined to honor Richard's wishes, and she was afraid. Afraid of Vincent? She never said so explicitly. But in the weeks before she disappeared, she became increasingly cautious. She told me she had insurance, evidence about Vincent's embezzlement, copies of the real will, letters from Richard expressing his intentions. Dr. Winters looked at Malik, who was listening with rapt attention. She hid her insurance in places no one would think to look, like a treasure hunt, she said. The storage unit, Jada murmured. Apparently so. Though I never knew where specifically she hid things. Safer that way, for both of us. Dr. Winters reached for a small drawer in the table beside her and withdrew an envelope. What I did keep was this, a letter Catherine gave me for safekeeping, to be opened only if something happened to her. When she disappeared, I almost came forward with it. But, Lenora prompted. I received a visit from Richard Falk, very similar to what you described, Miss Thomas. Veiled threats, references to my medical license, my reputation. I was nearing retirement, with no family to support me. I'm not proud of it, but I stayed silent. She handed the envelope to Lenora, but I kept the letter. And now, at 86, what more can they do to me? My conscience won't let me stay silent any longer. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter from Catherine Hayes, dated September 2, 1984. Just days before her disappearance. Dear Dr. Winters, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Vincent's threats have escalated since I filed the legal challenge to the fraudulent will. I fear for my safety but cannot abandon Richard's wishes. The evidence of Vincent's embezzlement is secured in multiple locations. The original will is in Box 891 at First National. Additional documentation is hidden where Vincent would never look, in plain sight, among what he would consider worthless. If I disappear, please know it was not by choice. Please ensure that Richard's true legacy is preserved, not pillaged by a man who sees only dollar signs where Richard saw beauty. With gratitude for your friendship, Catherine Hayes. This is significant, Lenora finally said, her journalistic understatement at odds with the excitement in her eyes. With your testimony and this letter, we can establish Catherine's state of mind before her disappearance, directly contradicting Vincent's suicide narrative. I'm prepared to testify. It's long overdue. The letter mentions Box 891, Jada pointed out, but Falk cleared that out 3 days ago, which suggests they found the original will, Lenora said grimly, and likely destroyed it, Dr. Winters added. Vincent would never allow such evidence to exist if he could help it, but he can't destroy everything. Malik suddenly spoke up. All three women turned to look at him in surprise. The lady, Catherine, said she hid things in multiple places. We found some, but maybe there's more? Like a treasure hunt with lots of clues? Dr. Winters smiled at the boy. You're a very perceptive young man. The small key, Jada remembered suddenly. The one Malik found inside the Polaroid camera. It must open something else, something we haven't found yet. Or something still in the storage unit, Lenora suggested. You said you couldn't clear everything out in the time allowed. Jada nodded. We focused on what seemed valuable or significant. There were still some furniture pieces, damaged boxes. We should go back, Malik said, but that wouldn't be possible. The 48-hour window for clearing the unit had long passed. Valley View Storage would have reclaimed it, possibly already auctioned it again, or cleared it for a new renter. I'll call them, Lenora decided. Perhaps we can arrange to inspect what remains. If anything, I'll explain it's related to a legal case. As they were preparing to leave, Dr. Winters took Jada's hand. Catherine was fighting for what was right, despite the risks. You're doing the same for your son and for her memory. Richard would have admired your courage. I'm just trying to follow where the evidence leads. That's all any of us can do, Dr. Winters replied. Back at the hotel, Lenora made calls while Jada helped Malik with his schoolwork. Despite their transient lifestyle, she'd managed to homeschool him using library resources and online programs, determined that he wouldn't fall behind academically even if their living situation was unstable. Valley View Storage still has the remaining items from Unit Haishone 3-4, Lenora announced after finishing her calls. They were scheduled to be disposed of tomorrow, but I convinced them to hold everything for 24 hours. We can go first thing in the morning to search for whatever that key might open. And I spoke with Alexandra, she continued. She's preparing to depose Dr. Winters officially tomorrow afternoon. With the doctor's testimony and Catherine's letter, we have enough to proceed with a formal challenge to Vincent's ownership of the art collection. Will that be enough? Jada asked. It strengthens our position significantly, and Alexandra has another approach as well. She's filing for a court order to examine the O'Keeffe Gallery's financial records from the past 40. Years. If we can prove Vincent has been selling off pieces that should have gone to Catherine, he'd face not just civil penalties but potentially criminal charges. Jada finished. Exactly. The threat of that exposure might be enough to force a settlement. Lenora paused. Speaking of exposure, I've prepared a preliminary article about the case. If legal pressure doesn't work, we can consider taking the story public. I have contacts at several major newspapers. Let's hold that as a last resort, Jada decided. First, the storage unit, then Dr. Winter's deposition, then the court filing. That night, as Malik slept peacefully in the hotel room's second bed, Jada stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, their van sat in a parking lot, still containing most of their meager possessions. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, but she recognized the tenor immediately. This is your final warning, Miss Thomas. Our offer is withdrawn. Return all items from Unit Hajan 34 immediately, or face legal consequences. Your current housing and custody situation is precarious at best. It was Falk again, escalating his threats. The mention of her custody situation sent a chill through Jada. How much did they know about her and Malik? Had they been watching the hotel? She showed the message to Lenora in the morning, who immediately called Alexandra. They're getting desperate, the attorney said over speakerphone. This level of explicit threat is actionable. Save that message. It's evidence of harassment and intimidation. Should we be concerned about them actually calling CPS? Jada asked. They might try, but it would backfire spectacularly, Alexandra assured her. You have documentation of proper care for Malik. His education is on track, his medical needs are addressed, and you're currently in stable housing. Plus, courts don't look kindly on weaponizing child welfare services as a legal tactic. If anything, it would strengthen our case against them. With that reassurance, they headed to Valley View Storage to examine what remained of Unit Hajan 34. The facility manager, a different person from the auctioneer, led them to the unit with barely concealed annoyance. This is highly irregular, he complained. These items are considered abandoned at this point. As I explained on the phone, they're now part of a legal case, Lenora replied smoothly. We appreciate your cooperation. The unit was much emptier than when Jada had last seen it, but several large pieces remained. The water-damaged dresser with the hidden compartment Malik had discovered, a small writing desk with a broken leg, and several boxes that had been deemed worthless. We have 30 minutes, Lenora reminded them. Let's focus on anything that might be locked or have a hidden compartment. It was the writing desk that caught Jada's attention. Despite its broken leg and water-stained surface, the wood was quality mahogany beneath the damage, and unlike the other furniture, which seemed randomly placed, the desk was positioned against the back wall, its damaged leg making it tilt awkwardly. This looks deliberately damaged, she murmured. Malik joined her. Does it have a secret drawer, like in mystery books? Jada examined the desk carefully. There was a single visible drawer, stuck closed from water damage. With Lenora's help, they managed to pry it open, finding only old stationery inside. Wait, Jada said. The drawer isn't as deep as it should be. She removed the stationery and measured the drawer with her hand, then compared it to the desk's external dimensions. There's a gap of at least 3 inches. Lenora's eyes lit up. A false bottom? They searched the drawer edges and finally found it, a nearly invisible seam at the back. When pressed, a hidden panel popped up, revealing a second, shallow compartment beneath. Inside was a small leather book, its cover unmarked except for the initials CH, embossed in gold. Beside it lay a key, identical to the one they'd found in the Polaroid camera. It needs 2 keys, Jada realized. Unlike a normal diary with a simple clasp, this had 2 separate locks built into the cover. That's why Catherine hid them separately. You'd need both to open it. With trembling fingers, Jada inserted both keys into their locks and turned them simultaneously. The binding mechanism clicked, and the book fell open. Inside was not a diary, but a ledger. Meticulous records of artwork sales, dates, prices, and discrepancies between recorded gallery income and actual sales figures. The final pages contained something even more damning. Photographs of documents. showing that Vincent had sold several pieces from Richard's personal collection before his death, forging his uncle's signature on the paperwork. The sales had been to private collectors overseas, making them difficult to trace. "This is it," Lenora whispered. "This isn't just about the will anymore. This is fraud, forgery, possibly tax evasion across decades. And motive," Jada added, the pieces falling into place. Motive for ensuring Catherine Hayes never revealed what she knew. They carefully secured the ledger and hurried back to meet Alexandra, who was preparing for Dr. Winter's deposition. "This changes everything," she said. "With these records and Dr. Winter's testimony, we have enough to approach the district attorney's office about potential criminal charges against Vincent and Falk. The statute of limitations has expired on the original embezzlement, but not on the ongoing fraud or the more recent sales." "What about Catherine herself?" Jada asked. "These records prove Vincent had reason to want her silenced, but they don't tell us what happened to her. First, we use this evidence to secure your position and neutralize their threats. Then we can push for a reopened investigation into Catherine's disappearance." That afternoon, Dr. Winters gave her deposition with remarkable clarity and detail for a woman of her age. Richard was clear about his intentions. Dr. Winters stated firmly for the record, Catherine Hayes was to receive his personal art collection, valued even then in the millions. Vincent was aware of this change and vehemently opposed it. With the deposition completed and the ledger evidence secured, Alexandra prepared their formal court filing, a civil suit challenging Vincent O'Keefe's right to the remaining artwork and seeking damages for the pieces already sold, with Jada as the plaintiff representing the interests of Catherine Hayes' estate. Since Catherine was declared legally dead and apparently had no heirs, the court will need to determine the proper distribution of any recovery, Alexandra explained. But as the person who discovered the evidence and brought the case forward, you have standing to initiate the process. And typically, courts award significant finder's fees in such cases. How significant? Jada asked. That depends on many factors, but given the value of the art collection and the clear evidence of fraud, potentially life-changing, Alexandra smiled reassuringly. But we're not there yet. How long will all this take? Jada worried about their temporary hotel housing, about Malik's stability. Normally, cases like this can drag on for years, Alexandra admitted. But we have unusual leverage here. The timing of Vincent's big legacy exhibition next month. The publicity from our filing alone could devastate the gallery's reputation. I suspect they'll want to settle quickly and quietly. That evening, while Lenora and Alexandra finalized the court documents, Jada sat with Malik in the hotel room, helping him with a science lesson about the solar system. Despite the whirlwind of legal developments, she was determined to maintain some normalcy for him. "Mom," he said thoughtfully, "if we get money from this case, can we get a real house? With my own room and bookshelves?" "I hope so, baby," she answered. "And could we maybe help other people who live in vans? Like how Mrs. Lowry helped us?" "That's a wonderful idea," she managed to say, pulling him close. "We'll definitely do that." Later, after Malik had fallen asleep, Jada looked through the photographs of Catherine Hayes again, the young woman with intelligent eyes and a gentle smile, whose life had been cut short because she stood up for what was right. Today was the preliminary hearing for their civil suit against Vincent O'Keefe and the Atarico O'Keefe Gallery Foundation. As Alexandra had predicted, news of the filing had spread quickly through Los Angeles's art community, with several publications running stories questioning the provenance and rightful ownership of the pieces scheduled for the upcoming Legacy exhibition. Vincent O'Keefe had responded through his attorney with predictable indignation, denying all allegations and threatening countersuits for defamation. But tellingly, the threats against Jada personally, the references to her housing situation and Malik's custody, had ceased immediately after Alexandra filed their suit with substantial evidence. Inside the courtroom, Jada caught her first glimpse of Vincent O'Keefe, a thin, austere man in his 70s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that emphasized his gaunt frame. Beside him sat Richard Falk. Vincent's gaze fell on Jada and Malik, his expression a mixture of contempt and calculation. Jada met his look steadily, refusing to be intimidated. Judge Eleanor Martinez called the court to order. Unlike the dramatic scenes in television courtrooms, this preliminary hearing was procedural and brief. Both sides presented the outlines of their claims, with Alexandra eloquently summarizing the evidence they had gathered. "Your Honor, we have documented proof that Vincent O'Keefe systematically embezzled from the gallery before his uncle's death, that Richard O'Keefe changed his will specifically to prevent further theft, and that after Catherine Hayes disappeared under suspicious circumstances, Vincent proceeded to sell off pieces of the collection that were never rightfully his." Falk countered with arguments about the statute of limitations, questioned the authenticity of their evidence, and emphasized Vincent's 40 years of faithful stewardship of the O'Keefe legacy. Judge Martinez listened impassively, occasionally asking clarifying questions of both attorneys. Finally, she spoke, "I find sufficient cause for this case to proceed. Discovery will commence immediately, with financial records of the O'Keefe Gallery from 1980 to present to be provided to the plaintiff's counsel within 30 days. Additionally, I am issuing a temporary injunction preventing the sale or transfer of any artwork from Richard O'Keefe's original collection pending the outcome of this case." "That went as well as we could have hoped," Alexandra said once they were outside. "The injunction is crucial. It prevents Vincent from quickly selling off or hiding assets while the case proceeds." "What happens now?" Jada asked. "Now the real work begins. Discovery, depositions, financial forensics." Alexandra checked her watch. "I have a meeting with a forensic accountant who specializes in art fraud cases. We're going to need expert analysis of Catherine's ledger and Vincent's gallery records." As Alexandra departed, Lenora turned to Jada with a smile. "This calls for a celebration. Lunch? My treat." They chose a casual cafe near the courthouse, where Malik marveled at the fancy sandwich, and Jada allowed herself to relax slightly for the first time in days. "Vincent looked worried," Lenora observed. "The injunction is a serious blow, especially with the exhibition so close. His reputation in the art world is already taking hits from the publicity." "Good," Malik said firmly, surprising both women. "He was mean to Catherine, and he tried to scare us." Jada smoothed his hair. "You're right, baby. But remember what we talked about. We're seeking justice, not revenge." "There's a difference?" he asked. "Justice repairs what's broken. Revenge just breaks something else in return." Lenora nodded. "Wise words. And speaking of justice, I received an interesting call this morning from an old contact at the police department. They're reviewing Catherine Hayes' missing person case in light of our evidence." "After all this time, could they actually determine what happened to her?" Jada asked. "Possibly. Cold cases have been solved with less." Lenora hesitated, "But we should prepare ourselves for difficult answers. The evidence strongly suggests that Vincent, or someone acting on his behalf, may have been involved in her disappearance." As they were finishing lunch, Jada's phone rang. Alexandra, calling with unexpected news. "Vincent wants to meet," the attorney said. "Not in court, not with lawyers present. He's requesting a private conversation with you." "Why would I agree to that?" Jada asked. "You shouldn't and won't, at least not alone, but this suggests he's rattled, possibly looking for a way out that doesn't involve full legal disclosure. I told Falk any meeting would have to include me, but he insisted Vincent wants to speak with you personally." Alexandra paused. "It's your decision, but if you're willing, this could be an opportunity to gauge just how desperate he is." After discussion with both Alexandra and Lenora, a compromise was arranged. Vincent would meet with Jada at Alexandra's office, with the attorney present but not actively participating unless legal issues arose. The meeting was set for 4 p.m. that same day, leaving Jada little time to prepare mentally for confronting the man who had threatened her family and potentially caused Catherine Hayes' disappearance. "Remember, you hold the power in this situation," Alexandra advised. "Vincent is the one facing potential financial ruin and criminal charges. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain." Vincent O'Keefe arrived precisely on time, without Falk, a detail that immediately caught Alexandra's attention. "Miss Thomas," he acknowledged Jada. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Mr. O'Keefe," Jada replied. Vincent glanced at Alexandra. "I had hoped for a more private conversation." "That's not possible," Jada said firmly. "Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of my attorney." "Very well, I'll be direct. This case, if it proceeds, will destroy everything I've built over 40 years. The gallery, my reputation, my legacy. Even if I ultimately prevail, the damage from publicity alone would be irreparable." "I'm aware," Jada responded. "I'm prepared to offer a dark settlement, a generous one." He named a figure that made Alexandra straighten in her seat. $1 million, to be paid immediately in exchange for all evidence from the storage unit and a signed confidentiality agreement. "And what about Catherine?" she asked quietly. "What happened to her?" "I had nothing to do with Catherine Hayes' disappearance. Whatever you may believe, whatever your evidence suggests, I never wished her harm. But you took what was rightfully hers. You erased her from your uncle's legacy." "I protected the collection," he countered. Catherine was young, inexperienced in the art world despite her education. She would have sold pieces to fund her idealistic notions. The collection would have been dispersed, lost. Instead, you've been selling it off piece by piece for decades, Jada pointed out. Catherine's ledger documents the sales meticulously. I sold only what was necessary to keep the gallery operational, to preserve the core collection, to honor Richard's vision. Richard's vision was for Catherine to inherit, Jada said firmly. You need to understand the context. The art world in the 1980 seconds was not what it is today. A young woman like Catherine, no matter how intelligent, how devoted to Richard, would have been eaten alive by the dealers, the collectors, the critics. I convinced myself I was protecting both her and the collection. He looked away. And then she became a threat, not just to my inheritance, but to my freedom if the embezzlement was exposed. Alexandra shifted forward. Mr. O'Keefe, I should advise you that anything you say could potentially— I know precisely what I'm saying, counselor, Vincent interrupted. He turned back to Jada. I did not harm Catherine Hayes, but I did threaten her, pressure her to drop her legal challenge. When she refused, I had Falk hire someone to follow her, to find this evidence she claimed to have. The man was instructed to frighten her, nothing more. But something more happened, Jada said. The last time I saw Catherine was the 15th of September 1984. She came to the gallery after hours, extremely upset. Said she knew I'd had her followed, that she'd caught the man breaking into her apartment. She threatened to go to the police, not just about the will, but about everything. The embezzlement, the forged signatures, the tax fraud. I lost my temper, said things I shouldn't have, threatened her more explicitly than I had before. She left, still angry, still determined. 3 days later, she didn't show up to work. Her apartment was found empty, some of her belongings gone. The police investigated but found no evidence of foul play. And you let them believe she'd committed suicide, Jada said. It was the simplest explanation, the one that would end the questions fastest. Vincent's expression was haunted now. But you never knew for certain, Alexandra interjected, her legal caution momentarily overcome by curiosity. Never. Vincent looked directly at Jada. That's the truth. I committed fraud. I stole Catherine's inheritance. I threatened and intimidated her. But I did not harm her physically. Whatever happened after she left the gallery that night, it wasn't at my hand or my instruction. Jada studied him, searching for deception but finding only a complicated mixture of defensiveness, regret, and fear. Your $1 million offer, she said finally. It's not enough. 2 million then. But that's my absolute limit. I'm not negotiating the amount, Mr. O'Keefe. I'm saying money alone isn't sufficient. Jada leaned forward. Catherine Hayes deserves justice. Your uncle's wishes deserve to be honored, and the truth deserves to be known. What are you proposing? Vincent asked. A complete accounting of every piece from Richard's collection that you've sold. A public acknowledgement that Catherine Hayes was the rightful heir. Cooperation with the police investigation into her disappearance. She paused. And the remaining collection to be donated to a museum in both Richard and Catherine's names. That's everything, my entire legacy. It was never your legacy to begin with, Jada reminded him. And in return? In return, Alexandra will advise the district attorney that you've cooperated fully. We won't push for criminal charges beyond what the law requires, given your age and cooperation." Jada glanced at the attorney, who nodded confirmation. "And you can still receive credit for doing the right thing, finally, after all these years. And the financial component? For you and your son? A trustee position with the museum collection, with reasonable compensation, and yes, a finder's fee for recovering the evidence, to be determined by standard legal protocols." Jada's voice softened. "I don't want to destroy you, Mr. O'Keefe. I just want justice for Catherine and security for my son." After another long silence, Vincent nodded, the gesture one of defeat but also, perhaps, relief. "I'll need time to consult with Falk to review the specifics." "Of course," Alexandra interjected smoothly, professionally once more. "I can draft an outline of terms by tomorrow, but I should advise you, Mr. O'Keefe, that our evidence is substantial. If you choose to fight rather than settle, the consequences would likely be far more severe than what Miss Thomas is proposing." "I understand. You'll have my answer tomorrow." He turned to leave, then paused, looking back at Jada. "You remind me of her, you know, Catherine, not in appearance, but in spirit." After he had gone, Alexandra turned to Jada with undisguised admiration. "That was masterfully handled. You offered him a way to save face while still achieving everything we want." "Will he accept?" Jada asked. "I believe he will. He's old, tired, and now facing the collapse of everything he's built. Your offer gives him a chance to reframe the narrative, not as a thief exposed, but as an aging man making amends." Alexandra gathered her notes. "Plus, the alternative is financial ruin and potential criminal charges. Vincent may be proud, but he's not stupid." In the conference room, Lenora had kept Malik entertained with chess and stories. The boy jumped up when Jada entered. "Mom, did the bad man say where Catherine is?" "He told us what he knows," she answered, "and he's agreed to help the police look for her again. But it was a very long time ago, baby. So we might never know what happened to her. That's sad." "Yes, it is. But what's important is that now everyone will know who she really was and what was supposed to be hers. We're helping tell her story, even if we can't finish it." The next morning brought Vincent's formal acceptance of their proposed settlement terms. Alexandra was jubilant, Lenora already planning a feature article about Catherine Hayes and the recovered art collection once the legal details were finalized. The following weeks passed, in a whirlwind of legal documents, meetings with museum representatives, and the gradual unfolding of a new life for Jada and Malik. The Legacy exhibition at the O'Keefe Gallery was transformed, opening with a somber press conference where Vincent publicly acknowledged Catherine Hayes as Richard O'Keefe's chosen heir and the rightful owner of the collection. He announced the donation of all remaining pieces to the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art to be housed in a new wing named the Hayes O'Keefe Collection. Police reopened the investigation into Catherine's disappearance, interviewing the now elderly private investigator Vincent had hired to follow her. While no definitive evidence of her fate emerged, the case remained active. For Jada, the most meaningful moment came when she was officially offered the position of collection trustee, a role that would allow her to use her eye for value. Professionally, ensuring Catherine's inheritance was properly preserved and presented. "Are you happy, Mom?" Malik asked one evening as they sat on the balcony of their apartment, looking out at the city lights. He was working on detailed plans for the house they would soon be able to afford, complete with the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves of his dreams. "Yes, baby. Very happy." And it was true. After years of struggle and uncertainty, they had security, stability, and purpose. Do you think Catherine would be happy too? About what happened to her paintings and stuff? I think she would be. Her story is being told, Richard's wishes are being honored, and the art they both loved will be preserved for everyone to enjoy. She pulled Malik close, grateful beyond words for his safety and the opportunities now opening before him. "That's a pretty good legacy, don't you think?" "The best kind," he agreed, leaning into her embrace. "The kind that lasts."